I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, the people on whose land we stand on today, whose land Breed Architecture stands upon, and whose land we built upon on this site. And we acknowledge that every act of construction, in the words of Stan Grant, is an act that starts with an act of destruction. And I think that we've all got to try and solve that. This project for us, I think, has been the most meaningful project we've done in our professional careers, because we finally got to do something that felt like we're actually helping, not harming. Anyway, let's talk about it. So this is a project for Aboriginal Housing Victoria. Before they'd come to us, they were doing a lot of townhouses and single houses. And this was like them trying to stretch into the apartment market, especially given for the first time in a long time they were finally getting some funding to be able to expand their mandate. And this is the context, a kind of, forgotten land in Reservoir where people had once had single family homes, and then each of them had renovated those or changed their titles to 3 units, 4 units, and 4 villa units. And this is what that feels like on the street. It's a sad and lonely place, like it's a forgotten context, far from its pre-colonial history and far from the kind of bright visual suburbia. Why did Aboriginal Housing Victoria buy this site? Because despite the fact that it feels kind of dislocated, it was very, very cheap land. But it was also near a bunch of their support services, like the Aboriginal Women's and Counselling Service. There were 3 pillars that were asked to put together on this project. And I think that, the initial briefing was to make sure that whatever we did was culturally appropriate. That we had to go through it in a participatory lens. And what was interesting for us was that AHV did the consultation with the Wurundjeri, and they didn't want us in the room for that. I'm not exactly sure why that was the case, but that's how it ran. And then obviously we were building on country. We need to show care for country. And the way that we could really do that on this site, this forgotten site, was through sustainability. So culturally appropriate homes, how do we do that as a largely European white practice? And I think we're lucky to have Jefa in the audience today. But Jefa had done work with Aboriginal Housing Victoria. So fortunately for us, he had set the way so that we, as architects that are good at reading planning instruments and like to read things and understand how to do things, were able to see the work that Jefa had done to help guide us through this. I think the other thing that we learned in working with Aboriginal Housing Victoria was understanding the importance of elders in community. And what became abundantly clear to us was it wasn't just about making sure that people got age in place, but elders are the gatekeepers for community. So they provide support, mentoring, but also to some extent, when required, a bit of a firm hand if someone's coming home late, making too much noise. So the elders are housed on the ground floor on either side of the entry. And then what does participation look like? And I think for us, it's a challenge, right? Because we have an idea of what it looks like, and we've read books by, Rick Lapastria and Paul Valeros, but this is a very specific context. This is Melbourne, this is to largely house Wurundjeri crew that used to live in Fitzroy and then have been pushed north out into Glenroy and, further north. We worked with an artist called Tani Edwards, and she was absolutely incredible. And she pushed us to places. This is the lift. So she pushed us to places that we never imagined we would go, and that was fine. I mean, and interestingly, some of the residents were quite annoyed with us. Or one of them was saying, why did you choose those colours? They're crazy. Well, it wasn't us; it was Tani. So we threw Tani under the bus.
And we also thought it was quite a great outcome that it was a really overt part of the celebration of country was super overt. The architecture is really restrained, and the artwork is something I think a little bit too out there, but it's bright and it's bold and it's it's punchy.
Yeah, and just simple things. And like being super overt, like Tony was like, it doesn't matter how overt you are, we need to claim back this country in whatever way we can. And so, even if it was, etching into all the pavers, then so we did it. So there was a great collaboration by Aboriginal Housing Victoria. Again, I think that they just listened to Tani. She was pretty powerful, and we just fell in behind her and supported her in that. And all the lift lobbies are all different colours. The lifts are different colours. And the front entry is just a whole lot of bundles all on there. So you walk through this kind of flock of bundles on the way into the building. And then how do we deliver on country? And I think the country's been decimated here. So we tried to consolidate the building, build the least amount as we could, and tried to make sure that we enabled as much planning around the edges of the building as possible, and also we made sure that, as stupid as it sounds, that every apartment had a planter box with irrigation in it, with planting already in it with Indigenous species. And why is that difficult? Because on the budgets that Aboriginal Housing Victoria are working with, a planter box and an irrigation timer are generally things that are kept out of the cost plan.
2 minutes.
If we think about operational carbon, as our kind of, the most important thing around sustainability, this thing is 100% electric. It's got a heat pump, everything is electric on the way through. We worked with Aboriginal Housing Victoria to buy 100% renewables through an embedded energy network. They couldn't do that because they didn't want to take the financial risk of unpaid bills by their tenants. So this is not 100% renewable in operation. So each tenant pays their own electricity bill. We do have extensive solar on the roof, and all the residents get the benefit of that. And again, working with Aboriginal Housing Victoria, their requirements for kind of energy efficiency was whatever the NCC requirements were, minimum 5-star, average 6-star. We delivered on a minimum 7.5 stars on the way through. We made sure we shaded all of the glazing to the north, west, and east appropriately.
Also to reduce the ongoing costs for residents in a cost-sensitive environment.
Yeah. So the building's highly thermally efficient. Every apartment is cross-ventilated, and every room has a window, including the bathrooms. We looked at embodied carbon on the way through, and we'll talk about kind of some of the ways that we manage that. And size matters. So before we did this building, they'd only done townhouses and freestanding houses. There was meant to be 4 townhouses on this site, and we've put 14 apartments on this site. Reductionism goes through where the brick does structure, fire rating, acoustics, balustrades, weatherproofing. And then inside the apartment, are really simple things like the fibre cement sheet that would go behind the tile, splashback gets a clear finish on it, rather than the tiles. The floors are just 12mm cork on 220mm post-tension concrete slab. And the cupboards are E0 MDF with a clear finish on it. Am I out of time?
Really?
Yeah. Okay, so importantly, the bricks are from country on country. They're quarried from Wurundjeri clay, made on Wurundjeri country in Melbourne, and then shipped 22 kilometres here. And then we spoke to the brick manufacturer about donating these bricks. So these were donated and they're carbon neutral. 14 apartments, not 4 townhouses. And we didn't build this at $6,000 a square metre on NSA. We built this at $3,300 a square metre on NSA. These townhouses are delivered at about $215,000.
So cut you off, Jeremy.
Sorry, Simon.
Okay. Sorry, just to be fair.
Okay, we'll open up for questions.